In 5 years, we had a tenfold increase in the number of student visa applications. Nothing, to me, will ever replace face-to-face, one-on-one discussions with people. It's interesting how Long arrived in September 2017, and if you think back,
Hi Commissioner, I am an avid social media follower. When I go through important accounts, including your account, I can see lots of people commenting on the visa delays. There are so many people. I think somebody said they are in the queue for since 2018 or something. So why is this delay?
Well, that is a good question, and I understand people's frustrations for a combination of reasons. COVID and a surge in demand after COVID, and a surge in demand, particularly in Sri Lanka, related to a bit to the economic crisis, but also, in 5 years we had a tenfold increase in the number of student visa applications, without a similar increase in our resources. So it poses challenges. I don't doubt that. I don't know about specific people and how long they wait. It varies very much by different visas, but we do try to take into account when there's a hard deadline that someone needs to travel by. As we continue to address this, and it's an active discussion in the Government of Canada about how to address these issues, I would also just give this strong advice to anybody who's applying to apply absolutely as early as they can, and be clear if they've got some particular reason that they're traveling at a certain date. That's important as well. But also for students, it's pretty clear when you're starting school that that's a hard deadline, but that's also a reason to apply as early as you can. Don't delay at all, and that can mitigate it somewhat. But I do share the frustrations of people who have to wait on these things, and we're sorry about that, and we are trying to improve the service.
Hi Commissioner, what is the impact of COVID in a career of a diplomat? I ask this because normally a diplomat during the tenure visits several places, meeting several people, but last 3 years, if I am correct, you are here. You are one of the long-standing diplomat here. What is the impact in your career?
That's an interesting question, because so much of a diplomat's life should be about getting out and meeting people. And for me, certainly, it's about meeting people in Colombo, but actually for me, the rewarding part of my job has been meeting people all over this country, and getting out and traveling as much as I could. Of course, with COVID, couldn't do that anymore. So my wife and I got to know each other much better. We were stuck at home for long periods of time, which was an added benefit in one way. But it really did mean that we had to learn about new technology, and that suddenly there was a realization that all this technology had been around for a while. Suddenly people had an imperative to use it. Zoom, Teams, whatever you want to call it, all those things. I found myself having formal bilateral meetings with ministers in Maldives because I couldn't travel to Maldives. So I was doing that. Real change to how business is done. And I think some of that change will continue. And certainly in the way our organization runs, there's a realization that people can do things remotely, don't always need to travel. Maybe a benefit to climate change from that point of view if you don't get on a plane. On the other hand, nothing to me will ever replace face-to-face, one-on-one discussions with people. I think that to me is about how you get to know people, how you get to know a country. And besides, many of the people that I take time to meet when I travel are not ones who would easily have access to the technology. So we have to keep that in mind, and the technology after COVID is not going to solve everything, and I think we need to return to the recognition that face-to-face interaction is also very important.
Hi Commissioner, now I understand that in couple of days that you are about to leave the country. You also said you are working here for more than 5 years. When you arrive in Sri Lanka, now going back to your country, how do you feel? What are the differences you see?
Well, You know, it's interesting how Long arrived in September 2017, and if you think back, what Sri Lanka was like in 2017, then there was the 52 days, attempted coup or whatever you want to call it, in October, from October 26, 2018. That was a pretty dramatic period. The terrible Easter bombings, to go through that, and the shock that brought to Sri Lankans, reminding them of conflict. The change in government, which reflected a certain shift in attitudes of the population. Then the economic crisis that's happened. All these things, I mean, when you're a diplomat, you always think the time you're posted somewhere is a bit special, but I think that the time I've been here has seen a huge amount of change in Sri Lanka. And what I think is interesting is that where in 2017, maybe there was more of a push that reconciliation and cohesion, building an inclusive society, was being pushed almost more from the top than it was from the grassroots, or coming from the minority communities and from a few people at the top. Think of Mangala Samarawira and others like that. That now with the Argalaya, and when I've spoken to people both in Colombo but also around the country, I think there's a shift and there's a desire for change and for more engaged populace with their government, a more demanding population looking for accountability, looking for good governance. And to me, despite all the real challenges that Sri Lanka faces at the moment, and I don't, for a minute, understate the severity of what people are facing, particularly in the countryside outside of Colombo. But the one positive thing I would bring away from this, I think, is that there's across communities and at the grassroots level, the average voter is seeing that maybe they need to ask more questions, they need to be more part of the system, and that's good for democracy. And so now the thing is for their political leadership to respond to that in a constructive way. I think that's what needs to happen now. But as I say, overall, I'd have some quiet optimism on that front.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Arvind. Always good to catch up and good to chat.
It's a great
Thank you.
opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.